And what we do is, when the board books are ready, the Friday before the meeting. And we usually either bring them, we can either send it to your house, have it delivered to your house, or we can have it delivered to the town hall.
Either one's fine with me, that would be great.
They're also available off the internet.
Yeah.
They're posted on the department's website, the agendas.
Okay.
So anybody can download them off the website.
That's even better.
I like that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Good to see you. Good
Are
night.
we expecting someone from Verizon?
Relative to the easement,
Yeah.
no, I'm here to explain that.
All right, well, since we still have a couple of guests here, why don't we continue? We'll come back to that. Yeah, adopt the stormwater regulations next. Dick?
Good evening.
Mr. Carver.
Even,
The town, all communities, Massachusetts had a stormwater permit from the EPA. One of the requirements was to pass a bylaw, which the town did at town meeting in October '06. And rules and regulations to implement, actually take the bylaw into workable things to do. One of the tasks I took on when I got here was that I inherited a document that was relatively cumbersome. And myself, staff, and Putman and Page went through several iterations to make it a little more user-friendly. The highlights in the body, the draft I inherited had essentially restating the bylaw, and it didn't make any sense, so we cut most of that out. Putman, Page, I agreed on most of everything. There was a fee schedule in there that was very complicated. If you come in for 1 acre, it's this price, and 2 acres, it's that price. It's very difficult to administer. We just got rid of that. And on the technical side, that's Appendix A through E. I pulled that out and incorporated stuff from the state or the federal government by reference rather than just reinventing the wheel. The one I inherited just way too cumbersome. So we cut it down, and it gave a developer and in-house staff, here's a checklist. If you're doing a stormwater plan, do A, B, C, and D. You know, here's what we're looking for. The building inspector is the enforcement official for this. He has a power to waive this, that, and the other thing, depending on the site. I added a requirement for public notification, or if it's a complicated one, a public hearing. Most of these things will tend to be a large development, so it's going to be through a site plan review, planning board anyway. So some of it will dovetail with other requirements, so it's not additional stuff to do. So, any questions?
Is this going to be up on the website, Dick?
Yes, sir, once it's approved.
So it'll be
I
available
updated the
document
website.
for those people that contract as people that are.
I updated the stormwater website as a place waiting for this to be approved.
So is this a piece of a larger document? Is this a section of a larger document, or is this standalone?
Standalone.
Standalone, okay.
We have a permit with 6 specific requirements. One of the requirements is to have a enforceable document for during construction and after construction, and the hay bales and things like that. You design that correctly. So this is actually tells them how to do it, where to put it, things of that nature.
Michael?
On the first page, the last paragraph, where you talk about simplifying submission requirements, but then following, it says, and to reduce staff and board time and cost to review submissions. So you have a board, a specific board in place that reviews this stuff?
Oh, you're looking at the cover letter?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. I'll take an example where I came from. I was a city engineer in Springfield. I inherited plans for everything in town, and I had to review them, and everybody did it different ways. So it would take me an inordinate amount of time to review these and get comments back to the various town officials and boards. So I'm kind of adopted some of that here where planning board, the CPC has things come in, this will apply to them, the Conservation Commission has things come in, so it'll apply to a bunch of, well, just about every board in the town. Any project that's over 1 acre and drains to the town's drainage system.
Can you, then the reduction of staff, is that your internal staff? Is that board staff?
To reduce the time,
It says to reduce staff and board time.
staff time and board time.
Okay, so,
Not gonna compete.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
A little thin as it is.
Good. I agree with you, that's why I was asking the question. I don't have any other questions.
Steve?
Just as far as the building inspector's ability to waive certain requirements, not that Jim doesn't do a terrific job, and have the public's interest in, best interest at heart here. It says, building inspector may waive strict compliance with any requirement of the bylaw or regulation for reasons given, whatever they are, in accordance with procedures set forth in whatever the bylaw. What are the checks and balances on the building inspector, though, in order to ensure that compliance is being doled out, firstly, evenly, to everybody, all the different developers, waive it for one, not waive it for the other? Is there any appeal process of those? Like, in other words, if abutters are concerned with some of the waivers that are being granted by the building inspector, what recourse does an abutter have? You know?
I think that's specific why I added a notification to abutters and depending on the complexity of requiring for public hearing. So they will be notified before something comes to him for looking at for a decision.
So in other words,
Number one, they'll get notified, abutters.
so the developer has to seek a waiver. Again, I perused it, but I haven't absorbed it all. And I wasn't able to necessarily find that a waiver has to be sought by the developer, specific waivers of specific sections of the regulation here. And then, what's the process? Does that happen during a public hearing process? Before?
It's just like any other board, there's an application process. Excuse me, there's a pre-submission meeting. They come in, lay their stuff on the table, similar to what the town does now.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Well, you gotta do this, this, and this. For example, there's a development going in with the old coffee shop is at Winter Street, what you're at Main Street. There's a meeting in-house, they'll come in, all the different boards will be here to meet with them, discuss town requirements. So
Right.
that's the pre-construction, or the pre-permit application phase.
Right.
And then they'll have their submissions, there'll be a requirement to notify the abutters. And then the complexity of it, there'll be a public hearing. Most times it's a public hearing already due to if it's a subdivision or if it's a ZBA. There's already requirements other boards, because this kind of piggybacks on other things.
Yeah, there's the site plan review for CPC in a lot of instances, or Board of Appeals.
And that was my question. I was trying to figure out how this
Dovetails with it.
dovetailed with it.
And what
Well,
I'm
the
trying,
permit
what I'm trying to
covers-
get to is, as it dovetails, do the waivers that they're seeking have to be specifically requested before they're acted upon by the building inspector?
Sure.
Easy to say, sure, but the authority lies with the building inspector.
I actually, that's just word for word from the bylaw. That's how it
On
was
page
enacted.
6, I thought I understood it pretty clearly, that all the abutters are getting a notification.
Yeah, but at what point?
Oh, but Steve's point is, so the building inspector, issues a waiver, and then another project comes up, and he doesn't. And, next thing you know, we're in court battling some of these things. So I think what we're trying to figure out is just, what's the overall process?
Yeah, and at what
how
point-
are those kinds of things
At what point
mitigated?
if there is a public hearing, again, there may be a public hearing, there may not be, depending upon what the project is and where it's at. So if there is no public hearing,
Butters never get a time.
abutters never get to voice their concern in relation to
No, they'll be-
adverse impact from stormwater management.
Every project has a notification.
Yeah,
Because I didn't read that there was even a waiver option.
I'm just reading right here, waiver. Page 4, top of the board.
Yeah.
Page 4, top of it, waivers. Building inspector may waive strict compliance with any requirement of the bylaw or regulation for reasons given. Again, the reasons that he gives.
Yeah, just
With good
to put this
cause.
in perspective, I guess, application comes in, the building inspector's gonna give it to the Public Works, CPC. Every board sees this in town.
Oh, I know.
It's not just the building
No, I know.
inspector looking
The
at this.
process we have in town hall here is very good when it comes to projects and, when everybody sits down ahead of time, and it actually helps streamline the process and puts everybody on the same page and everybody sits in the same room, all the town departments. It's a great thing that was instituted a number of years ago. I'm just concerned about the process and abutters' rights.
Yeah.
And we're
Maybe
talking
we
about
can,
some-
maybe we can get to this a different way. What did we do before this bylaw for stormwater? Nothing?
I haven't seen any big projects in town, so I don't know.
I mean, there
Why
must
don't we
have
just
been
take that out?
some,
Jim, can you help us out here? as
No.
far
It's
as-
in the bylaw, I just,
no, I'm not picking on you.
The whole stormwater regulation came up in 2003 as a result of EPA mandating cities and towns adopt regulations.
I understand that.
Prior to that time, it was done on a very informal basis in terms
No,
of.
but we were concerned about drainage in developments and things like
Right.
that,
A lot of them.
long before this.
I
But
just
that
know-
would have been part
I
of
just know
the
from all my
CPC.
experiences with the 40Bs. I mean,
So I guess what I'm asking is, in terms of what we did before and how, what's different about this and where does it fit in the process?
I think it was more of a negotiation process previously, where the town would require certain things and the developers would give you a pushback, and then there'd be a meeting of the minds between Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, a meeting of the minds between their engineers and our DPW and the building inspector, and there was more back and forth that way, where a general consensus was then arrived at, and that's what became the plan. I'm just going by 5 or 6 years I was involved with the 40Bs. And again, each one of them had very different stormwater management issues.
Yeah, any project that came in before this had to go through the stormwater management that CPC had. I mean, they would look at the plan, and they would look at stormwater, they would look at drainage, because any project is required to maintain the water on their property. So there was always something in place.
All right, so then this basically is one step of tightening the controls and meeting certain regulations that have been imposed upon us.
Yes.
Right. Yes, Mike?
Just quickly, can somebody just give me an example of what would require a waiver?
For some reason, if the site, if there was something in there that was absolutely ridiculous that they didn't have to apply, depending on the topography of the site or something, but, other than that, I mean, it goes to every department, it goes to the DPW, town engineer, community planning, DBA if it has to, and everybody looks at it, conservation looks at it, so I mean, everybody would have to agree that, okay,
Okay.
that they don't need.
So it's not just
Before I
you
would grant
granting a
any
waiver, it's,
so.
so you're not just granting a waiver independently, you seek counsel from the CPC and other.
Yeah, and if any of those boards had a problem with it, there would be no waiver, so.
I'll give you an example of a waiver in Peabody. Most developments have these detention ponds, and developers like to develop all their lands, and they tend to be these things with sides like this for danger for children. So our regulation, Peabody said, you gotta do this, and we said, doesn't make sense, it's not safe, put it underground, cover it over, so it's safe. So we waived that particular open top requirement to make something safer that made sense. That's one common one I did in my part.
Does the waiver come at the outset of the project, or does it come, during construction?
Well,
Then they come in and say,
This
okay.
document is more when it's gonna go to construction.
Okay.
For example, this is more concerned about the dirt running off during the construction. The CPC and everybody gets a hold of it first, and the Conservation Commission, and when they go to construction, they do this because you have to identify the contractor. And I also link this, there's an EPA requirement that says if you do 1 acre or more, you need a permit from the EPA. So I linked that to this. So it's basically the same thing the EPA is doing. And the EPA permit has the same requirements. So odds are if they go to the EPA and get a waiver, they're gonna come to us for the same waiver. So.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does the process initiate through the inspector, or does the
For
process?
stormwater permit?
Yeah, is it,
So
so,
the project itself, the initial approvals, will be way before they come for this one. Some of the materials for the submissions might be the same for the initial planning board, conservation commission. But this permit is a construction permit.
so I'm not sure if I understand, so if it
Other
goes,
boards will approve the project.
okay,
This is just one aspect of managing the construction, so the dirt doesn't run off the site.
okay, so if one of an issue comes up, the inspector has the option of making an executive decision at that point, saying that you don't need to do this. That's how I'm seeing this. That
It's part of the approval process, but I guess in the bylaws, I read it, if something goes wrong and dirt's running into the town drain system,
Right.
I have the authority to put a cease and desist up. So lots of checks and balances